This journey began for me 4 years ago with the ESSP, so I'm sure most of you are aware of our sector plan. Having been a part of that and subsequently working on the PLT team, we were asked to take on the First Nations Inuit Métis outcome with respect to graduation rates and students, better student outcomes. In order for me to have taken that on, one of the things that I was pretty adamant about was, in order to do that, principals are, at least my humble estimation, the fulcrum of every system. They're the thing that makes systems work. And so without being able to prepare principals in ways that are meaningful so they could live this work out in their systems respectively, I didn't want to take the work on. You are it as far as systems go. Without you, they are not successful. Student outcomes, regardless of the best teachers, whether they walk on water or not, it is a research fact that without good stewardship provided by principals, the student outcomes just aren't achieved, as particularly the ones that are desired. And so the research that we did looked at how do we create a space then that allows principals to be able to do that in ways that are meaningful. It has to be for principals and by principals. And that said, typically we're passive participants in most PD that we've been exposed to. You sit there, it's washed over you, you go to your building and find application. Here, we're trying to make this so that when you take it back, you can contextualize this and use this in your buildings with your staff. And the tools that are provided here certainly lend themselves to other things. There were two things about it, though, that were really important. First was disposition. So obviously being a part of the work that some of you have engaged in yourselves in your respective buildings, understanding the ecology of your building becomes more and more taxing as we get further along the road. Diversity is key, obviously, in that respect. Through the first 2 days were around disposition. So we looked at anti-racist and anti-oppressive education. And we really hammered that for those 2 days. And what we wanted to do was to make sure that this time around it was interspersed throughout your experience, and so that it always brought home through each of those signposts the necessity to consider disposition. It's so important. One of the passions I had, and I alluded to earlier when I agreed to take this outcome on, was that unless we were able to afford our principals a space to be able to do this work in their own respective buildings in ways that were meaningful, I wanted a part of it. And some of that had to do with, again, disposition. If you don't know yourself, where you come from, who you are, sometimes we do things inadvertently to those around us. Sometimes our students, sometimes our parents, sometimes our teachers. To me, the imperative here was to equip you with the ability to self-examine first during the journey. And then once you've been able to get some perspective, use that as you go along. Because certainly not knowing who you are is very detrimental to the process. Because I myself had gone through a similar journey when I started my master's degree quite some years ago, and I took an anti-racist and anti-oppressive education course. Being a First Nations person, gone through ceremony, spoke my language, lived in my community. When I talked about things, all things Indigenous, I thought I knew what I was talking about. And the irony is I didn't realize that my very off-beige skin has really afforded me to do different things in life that others haven't. I have cousins who are far superior in terms of education than myself, and yet somehow or another I find myself in places where I find success. Now granted, I'm not going to sit here and say it's not with the sweat of my brow because I've worked hard to be where I am, but I also understand it's also the way I look, and that's true. So when I took that journey, it really made me understand that if I'm going to be a person in a building where there's so many dynamics, where classrooms are marked by diversity and change, how am I even to support conversations around what we're trying to endeavor upon without knowing who I am first? And I only agreed to do this work if I was allowed to do that. I am so happy to get to go along with you on this journey. Their experiences in their buildings, the things that they bring to the experiences in terms of where they come from and who they are as people they're well equipped. And I believe firmly that you're certainly going to get out of this everything that you need. People may go, well, why are we doing this always for First Nations and Métis and Inuit? And I get these questions still to this day. And of course, it is a provincial mandate, one. Number two, it's the right thing to do. Number three, it's overdue. But number four, it's good for everybody. What you're learning here is applicable to the diversity that you have in your classrooms today. And without it, yes, you'll continue to do their jobs and do them well, or you wouldn't be here. But with this, I believe you can do an even better job. And so I'm really thankful to the six. I'm thankful to the technical working group, the people from behind the scenes that have provided oversight, and obviously to the government for giving me the nod to take this on for the last 3 years. It's been a journey, and I'm glad that we finally come full circle and we're on our way. So with that, I'd like to thank you and wish you good luck as you go through. If you need anything, certainly you've got your contact leads to get a hold of, and they obviously will get a hold of me if it's dire, and we'll work it out. But anyway, that's it. I hope you enjoy your experience. Let us know how it goes as you go along, and take this back to your building. Use it. It is effective. I promise you that. I think.